but we're ripping straight into the means test with David King. Hello to you, Kingy.
Morning, G. How are we?
Excellent. Just a word on the day before we drill right down. So, magnificent sea of blue beanies as the whole community comes together. Biggest crowd yet for the Big Freeze. Biggest home and away crowd for Collingwood and Melbourne since 1964.
Right.
Yeah, the crescendo of the day has built across 10 years and longer, and it was beautiful to behold yesterday.
A lot of fun. It's great to see everyone. Sometimes games get in the way of the feel-good story, and our great game opens us up to so many different emotions, and I think we're lucky, we're fortunate, everyone bought in. The sea of blue beanies is just terrific.
Yep.
You get to the ground, you feel really proud to be an AFL fan at some points in the season, and it's become a really special day. It has, and even the build-up to the Monday, the Sunday night was terrific. Look, it just captures our city. And it's great to be part of it. So well done all. And I know the Danaher family, they put so much into, they invest so much into this, and they've driven this and built this. And clearly there's a lot of other people behind the scenes. So well done to those people. And again, just allowing us to get involved in feeling good about life for a while, and it's a difficult circumstance. We understand why we're doing it, but it's just a special moment in our season.
Biggest crowd yet for the King's birthday, Queen's birthday match that Collingwood and Melbourne have been staging. Second biggest crowd ever to see Carlton and Essendon in a home and away game, and the second biggest home and away crowd at the SCG in history as well. So our connection to the game has been demonstrated week after week after week this season, and it's as powerful as ever. We're going to start with a big issue because you'd framed the big issue around Melbourne. All the questions of round 13 zeroed in on what was going to transpire yesterday, and the Demons didn't meet the moment.
No, they didn't, and they were unlikely to, really. You've just got to be real about what's happening and what you're seeing. And we're seeing a disjointed model, and they're trying to correct back to what they were. They've been down this path for, say, 11 of the 13 rounds, and they tried to wind it back. Simon Goodwin told us yesterday prior to the St Kilda game, had some difficulty on that night, awful difficulty up in Darwin, and then again, it's just out of sync. Should we be here when we're there? Are we handball receiving? Are we uncontested marking? Are we going long down the line to the next contest? Or are we playing keepings off for a little bit? So at the moment, they're caught in betwixt and between, and it just takes the confidence out of that split-second decision. What am I doing? I've got to take another beat. You're under pressure. You're gone. And Collingwood had pressure to the nth degree there at the start of the game, and they just made them look a little bit average. And in the end, their prime movers aren't there. They're just not there, not right at the sharpest pointy end that they've been. And they're only small margins. Max Gawn, unbelievable player, and giving his all. You can just see Max wanting to be the guy, intercept marking everywhere as he does. That's not going to change. Max is Max, and that's why we love him. Petrarca gets injured early, but he hasn't really been as dominant forward of centre as what we'd hoped this last few weeks. And Oliver's in a different discussion altogether. He's just not Clayton Oliver of old at the moment. So that's room for a different view. Then they decided to tag, which was a great idea. The idea to tag Dacos and the role and the application of Neil Bullen worked perfectly. But he's such an important player for them in their offensive game that they lost again there. So when Petrarca's off and the other, Viney's getting some ball, but there's nothing coming from Jack Viney's ball. Nothing. So there's no threat. So add to that the trust that the coach has in those guys. He doesn't move them out of there. If they're playing, they're in the middle. So when it's not working, they're still in the middle. So at some point you've got to cut the cord and say, hey, look, let's put Rivers in there. Let's put McVeigh in there. Let's I know Cozzy's going in there, but I just feel like it's a bit same with Melbourne all the time when it's not working. So what levers do you go to? Where do you try and sort of find that next level of impact? So they're in real trouble now. They've just become a pretty average footy team, having been difficult to play against, unbeatable in a contest, and now they're gettable everywhere.
Terminal or curable?
Not for this season. I still think they've got significant talent and star factor players and great leadership. They can bounce next year, but it all comes home to roost forward of centre. They can't convert, so there's no reward for all their efforts. And in the end, they wear a couple on the beak early, and it's over. The gap just is maintained. So they're off the top 4 or 5 in the comp. They'll still play. There'll still be a chance to play finals, but it'll be meaningless. It's just another year that it'll fritter away into nothing.
So the fervour was missing for me at the start yesterday. Maybe that's not them. Maybe that's not them naturally. It was all around what you've just spoken about, sort of the mechanics of this and that, and where was the souped up, ginned up arrival?
But
it's
what is
pressure.
That? Yeah.
Collingwood met the moment. They looked like the team with it all on the line.
But this is. I get annoyed by these conversations a little bit, and I think sometimes you can have that. You can elevate for that performance, like a milestone game or, a prelim final. This is it. We got to go. But if it's just because you've lost by 100 points, is it real or is it just conversation? Is it outside noise? They embraced it. They leant into it, Melbourne. Oh no, we've got to do this. We're going to do that. It's about the response. How many times does the response actually come? Over the last few years, when everyone talks about, will you judge us next week, right? How many times is next week the week that they do respond?
Yeah, my personal view is that's a marker of our competition, is teams do respond. They make amends the next time they have the opportunity to. And it doesn't mean the issues are rectified. They do come together and produce that performance to make up for the mess that they created for themselves. That redemption cycle, which runs 6, 7, 8 days, I think that's one of the markers of the competition. And when you talk about it enough, well, judge us on what happens next. Well, we arrived yesterday to judge Melbourne. I didn't see a peep of it.
No. Well, we're agreeing on that. But is that because of confusion? Because confusion can take away your pressure game. It can take away your instincts, your ability to hunt. Am I spearing after this footy or am I holding here? Am I running wide to an uncontested mark or am I staying in the contest? All those little things just create doubt. You can't have doubts in the way you play. And that's where they're living at the moment. It's not instinctive. It's not first give. It's not we are rusted on in how we're playing. They're behind the ball. They can defend the first initial entry as good as anyone. But the next 3 seconds after that, it is out of sorts. And the ball bobbling around, they are getting got more often with that secondary opportunity than I've ever seen them. And I think there's a lack of trust with that. Or I don't trust him to defuse the problem. I'm going to go as well. So many times you see 2, 3, 4 guys going for that first ball and being vulnerable at ground level for the next one. It's not funny. We showed probably 2 or 3 at quarter time, probably 3 or 4 at half time. You could have showed a dozen of them in the post match. So that they're all correctable things, but they're so far from where they were. I just don't think you can gather and go again in the space of 10 weeks.
And then when they needed everything to go right early, their first 6 shots at goal, they had 2 posters, the soccer from close range, which was harder to miss than score, 2 out on the fulls and 1 overturned. It was an uncanny sequence of events as well, which sort of is emblematic of the way their forward line misfires.
Well, you know my thoughts on this. We speak a lot about the 0 to 30 scores are my go-to with this. If you're going to operate on converting from outside sort of 35, 40, good luck to you. You're going to hit some, and you're going to have some good days, and you're going to have some bad days. It's like pulling out the one wood, Jared. You don't know where it's going, right? 0 to 30 yesterday, 5 goals, 1 to Collingwood, 1 goal, 3 to the D. So they just didn't get enough looks inside 30, which means you get no strolling goals. You get your ball movement doesn't give you the easy one at the end. So everything's hard, and that's a bad way to live against good teams when everything's difficult. So that's their lot. That's who they are. Their off season for me is just about finding the answer forward of the ball, and I do think it's talent now. It's a player because they've tried the different ball movement. And they've been the contested brutes along down the line. That works for them. They've just got to go and find a player that fits that model and pay whatever you have to get him.
The Petrarca scenario and the way that played out for you?
Yeah, and I know this is going to be. I'm going to be on an island with this one, right? This is not a preliminary final. This is round 13. You got your best player, or if he's not your best, he's your second best. Has clearly got a significant issue with his ribs. You got to play the long game with this one. I'm not sending him back out there, knowing that there's at least some sort of rib damage. And the easy answer that comes back at me, this is a big boys game. You got to get your injection and go back out and play whatever role you can. If you looked at him for the first 3 seconds when he went back out there, he couldn't run effectively, and he couldn't hang on to the ball for more than one second because he was going to get nailed. You can't sign off on is there any other damage to his kidneys or anything. And in the end, he goes for scans to confirm all these things. So at the time, don't give me you're 100% sure on where he is with his health, because you're not. No one is. So it's an educated guess to put him back out there, and it's a calculated risk. That's a risk I'm not taking at round 13. Don't tell me the welfare of the player is absolutely paramount and the only decision. Above all others, we put the player first. Preliminary final week, I can understand. Grand final week, absolutely. You take all sorts of risks because the gains are so great. But at round 13, I just think it's a poor decision. And it's not a medical decision. That's a full coaching, footy manager, doctor, player. That's a collective, collaborative decision. So to me, around 13 or 14, that's a bad call.
So when his night was going to finish in hospital, you could tell that when he went down from the initial blow, and so it did. So that was a little glimpse into his psyche. He felt it was preliminary final night. He felt that was he and Gawn were the two in the first quarter who looked like this is everything, and they didn't have enough with them. The Collingwood side of things, it's incredibly admirable with plug and play and what they're able to get out of some of these players at the moment.
It's funny, the psyche of a competitor or anyone in the world, really. If you sit down at work today and someone continually tells you can't do something, you won't be able to do it. And if someone comes in and says, hey, we've got enormous trust you're going to be able to do, we're going to elevate you today. You have to do it. All you have to do is this for us, and I know you can do it. And I'm going to challenge you to do this, and I'm going to challenge you. Hey, and we're here to support you, and we're here to help you. Craig McRae gives so much confidence to every player on that list walking in to fulfil that part of the program. It ain't funny, and it's at a greater level than any other coach I've seen. And he cops his wax for that. They say, is he really hard enough? Is he this? He's got them feeling like they can perform for him, and I love it. And you see it. He's been wanting to play Kruger. The minute he's healthy, he's in that team, right? So he's one of his boys. And you see it yesterday and you think, you know what, that's going to put pressure on every other tool they decide to offer up for selection. I don't know whether Mason Cox is where he sits now. I don't know if can he play a bit more second ruck Kruger going forward. Then you maybe get then the decision is, do we need to play Frampton? You can get some flexibility if he can stay healthy. So if he can. But Nick Dacos is tagged and Crisp stands up. No Pendlebury there. Sidebottom has a performance that we didn't know he still had left in him. Jeremy Howe winds the clock back 40 games. And it's just a one-man wall. They couldn't get through him. He's spoiling his reading of the play. They had the extra, which just made it perfect for them all day, which was a concern and something you'd have to ask. You'd have to question in the post-match if you're Melbourne. Should we have given them that luxury, given that they haven't been in great form back there? Can we really challenge them? And I want to get to it in the gambit later on, but if you allow Collingwood to get their game rolling, they'll put 3 or 4 on you in a hurry. They're quite frightening again, aren't they? Nick Dacos, he did his thing at clearance, but outside of that, he was a non-factor, and they still were able to do this. Awesome. I think the best teams in the comp year on year, when you lower your gloves, put 5 on your beak. Bang, 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 game over or game back on. And I just wonder which team, in your mind's eye now, which teams can do that. So I saw Sydney do it on the weekend. We've seen Sydney do it, and they're clearly, the pole sitter at the moment. Who else can do it? I think Brisbane can do it, and their profile shows you that they can do it. I think Carlton can do it. We've seen Collingwood do it. We've seen the Dogs do it sporadically. but not consistently. We've seen Fremantle do it sporadically when the game said we've got to go, but not by design or not by choice. But they can do it. It's there. Who else? Who else can do it? Can Essendon do it? I think Essendon have got the capability of doing it, but maybe we haven't seen it as often as what you'd maybe have thought. Can Port Adelaide do it? Haven't really seen that. Not sure. Come back against Hawthorn, which they had to do that and found a way to do it. I think if you can't do that, you're in real trouble. Because when you've got momentum, you've got to get it on the scoreboard. So we just talked about Melbourne. So Melbourne don't do it. We go back to when they could do it. Bang, bang, bang. The James Brayshaw commentary, bang, bang, bang. That sits with me. I regularly bring that up. But it's that the power of the time, the power of that 3 minutes of footy sits with you for years because that's what they were. You've got to be able to have that power, I think, to be a genuine pointy-end threat. You agree with that?
Yep.
The stopping of it, the denying of it, I think that's gone. I don't think you can defend your way to a premiership anymore. I think you've got to have this. You've got to have this threat to change what the opposition want to do. So you play Sydney, you choose to do nothing for that window. When they get rolling, you're in trouble. You have to pull an extra half forward up behind the stoppage. Do we have to do this? Do we have to now? Okay, we can't hit the ball into space. We've got to keep it in tight. We're going to play straight line. Don't flare it out at all. These guys are on top. You have to give up so much of what you want to be when the opposition have momentum that it works for you. Even if when it's not working, it still works for you. So, I don't know where you sit on that, but I just think you have to have that threat and at some point be able to execute it.
Stay on Sydney, and what did you see firsthand to continue to flesh out their case as the benchmark?
So over the last 6 weeks, their power from stoppage is so clear. It's so obvious for all to see. And when they were in real trouble, so the Cats were very good early. Their half forwards were doing all the damage, and they got themselves to a 5.5 goal lead. That's no mean feat on the road. Hostile venue. It was an awesome atmosphere, and they were just silent. What's happening here? What's going on? They had it where they wanted them, and then Warner says, you know what? Come on, guys, let's go. Right? You could feel it. They just got it wrong at one stoppage where they let him stand alone, and it was a quick handball from Gordon to Warner. He took 3 steps and he smashed this thing. He's just hitting them out of the middle, Jared. And it just went 60 metres right through the heart of the goals. And then Heaney went, oh, you know what? I wouldn't mind a piece of this either. He goes back to the centre bound stoppage and he does the same thing. And then Gordon gets involved. Then all of a sudden you got them all up and rolling and you're trying to put out fires everywhere. That was them. I don't know if I've seen. We touched on Warner. I told you. I said he's going to have a break. He's going to have a breakout game. It was about 6 weeks ago.
It was after the Fremantle game, where you could just see in his movement that it was about to happen, and he has just caught ever since then.
We said he's going to go gangbusters. That was the words we used. Stupid word, but that's the word we went with. He's going to go gangbusters. I don't know if I've seen a healthier product hit the ground running like he is at the moment. There's that ball in the middle of the ground, and every show, every review show is going to exhibit that because it's amazing. He's 40 metres from goal at the defensive end, and as soon as the ball starts to travel at any meaningful speed, he drops the hammer and sprints through the middle of the ground. And there's no one in the competition that would be able to go with him. No one. It was awesome. And it's not until you see it that you go, nah, this is next level. So whilst they're like this and you hope they stay healthy and you hope that these mids can just roll on as they are, it's a long year. It's the only rider. It's the only asterisk, but they are so far in front of the competition at the moment, it ain't funny. Mills to come back in the next couple of weeks and Parker at round 18 and just chatting with Luke Parker. And can we just put this on the record that Luke Parker's done a lot of heavy lifting over the last 4 to 5 years, and he's taught these guys how to train, how to prepare, how to live the professional lifestyle, still have a good time. He's been a major player in building this culture, and I was just talking with him about being proud of the group, lateral conversation, and he was really honest. He's hurting not being out there, but I'll tell you what, when he comes back around 18, Jared, they're bringing a wrecking ball back in. And I don't think he'll spend the 3 weeks in the twos that he probably had to do this time up. Because I reckon John Longmire will think, okay, at round 18, we've got to get him up to speed quickly because the finals will be on the horizon. They're in great health. And if you want to just talk about full club premierships and full club opportunities, the acquisition of Brodie Grundy at this perfect time, he was the one that shifted this game on the weekend. I know we talk a lot about the other mids, but he took Stanley to the cleaners. And I know that you don't want to make it about one man, and Chris Scott doesn't want to make it about one man, but they, again, were exposed to the nth degree in the ruck.
What did Essendon learn on Sunday night?
Yeah, well, I agree with him a little bit. It's hard to disagree with them, isn't it? They know exactly what's happening, but they just missed so many opportunities in front of goal. It threatened to be a good game, but it sort of, in a lot of ways, it wasn't.
Yeah, never quite caught. It was ready to catch.
Yes.
And if Essendon had been able to kick their goals in the third quarter, they missed their chances early in the game. And then the third quarter, it almost degenerated to under 12s. Yes, they were getting entries, but they never looked like kicking goals from those entries in the manner that they were coming.
Yeah, then you look at the Essendon forwards and you say, okay, well, Langford's had a great year, and he's had a great 2 years, really. And he couldn't get going, and then you're looking, okay, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Peter Wright? Oh, Peter's not really doing much, and Harrison Jones is still, he's still that player that to me looks like he's going to kick six, but it's probably more likely to kick one. So I don't know if he's got a six in him. That's their forward line at the moment, and then you go to the smalls, thinking, okay, is it going to be Gresham? Is it going to be? So I still think they're a work in progress down there. And then, it's a tough caper. Once you get exposed by a good back six, then you get that reality check. The things that really hit me in this game, and we've talked a little bit about Elijah Hollands at the start of the year when that pre-season venture we did. They're not looking for a lot, Carlton. While they got a bit of an injury list with Chera out and those sorts of guys, I think they've explored what this guy can do, particularly at centre bounce clearances and then playing half forward. So it allows your Chincotta to then come up and be the midfielder. So he's very capable of clearance. We understand that. And then he's smart enough to be able to handle that half forward role. Usually it's a senior core player. Usually that's a 100-plus gamer that has to be able to cope with that sort of shift. So they've found one. No, not found one. Found one's not the right word. They've traded for one. They knew what they were getting, and they got him, and now they're going to live this for quite some time. That's a massive asset. So I'm only looking for little things with Carlton. What's changed? What's new? The ruck discussion is going to be a discussion we're going to have for weeks. De Koning looked fantastic in there. Does that mean that you can bring back Pitnet or not? I still think they're a better product with two rucks. Now, I get it. I'm on an island again with that one, Jared. But if you have a look at Pitnet's ability to create scores from clearance, it's nearly best in the comp. So this is a luxury you can't leave on the deck. And even if it means one goal or two goals, wind forward to a prelim final, it's not going to be decided, you wouldn't think, by big margins. And assets you can't walk past. So you still got to explore. Carlton will still explore what this looks like, and whether he can be subbed out of the game halfway through the third quarter, Pitnet, and you maximise him early and you save ruck minutes for De Koning, and then you can cash in late. All these sorts of things have to be explored. We've all talked about Zach Williams being forward. Curnow sort of had his... Curnow looked like he was going to kick 10, didn't he, on Ridley early?
Yep.
But look, the Carlton are in good form. They're making a bit of a statement, a bit of a surge up the table. They're playing pretty good footy without being unbelievable. And Essendon, I don't know where I sit with Essendon. I don't know where I sit. Do you still have to play? I left that sort of night or that viewing thinking, do you still have to play Ridley on the best forward of the opposition? I thought he was going to be the interceptor. And is he more value not being diligent to a man? We talked about his work when he first came back in, intercepting at half back, levels we hadn't seen before. No one had taken, I think it was 6 intercept marks across half back for 10 years. No one had done it in that wedge of the ground. That's them at their best. So time again, I think they go Laverty instead of Ridley and allow him to be the third man in more regularly than what he was on the weekend. But still, they're still charging forward, playing some pretty good football.
Yeah, so this is why PFI is our high-end measure. Carlton have PFI. We fully expect them to be there in the last four and see how their medal stacks up. Essendon don't have PFI yet. They might evolve into that over the back end of the season, but the likelihood is their role is in elimination finals and semi-finals rather than preliminary finals, and that they'll try to bank that experience and evolve for next year where they might have PFI. That's how I feel about them. But because they've sat in such a lofty position, and full credit to them, this was a team that few expected to be contending for finals. I fully expect them to break their finals drought this year.
Yeah.
But I expect them to do it in an elimination final.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so let's live in the now. I'm sort of with you, but I'm worried that it's still a little way away.
Yeah.
Defensively, they're still brilliant. Their forward 50 has fallen apart the last month or so, last 4 or 5 weeks. Their clearance game has come off. So this has happened before with Essendon at this stage of the year. Everything really good till about round 13, 14, and then it falls off a cliff. So they've got to hang on now. So they got to get through this small rut. It's not a canyon by any stretch, but they've got to get through this part and get their ball movement back that gives them their ball movement's fine. It's their forward 50 that's not cashing in. So how do they get that back? What does it look like? Is it still those same magnets? Do they need to challenge what they've already got forward of the ball? Would be a really healthy discussion for them to have, because now's the time to have a look. Are they still doing what they should do, those guys? Or are you just playing them because you've always played them?
M from Elwood. I've got heaps of messages from North supporters, but as the Eagles pegged the lead back, my son dissolved inside his hoodie, only to emerge after the Paul Curtis goal and on the final siren, jump on top of the coffee table with pure relief and exhilaration. Go Roos. For the downtrodden, this was a real moment.
Oh, it was. I tell you what, I was 2 minutes into the last quarter. Gerard Healy said, and the Kangaroo fans will really be able to enjoy this last quarter. This has been a win that's been a long time coming. My phone lit up in the next 15 minutes with people texting me saying, can you get hold of Gerard Healy? They kicked the next 6. They kicked the next 6, the Eagles, and hit the lead. I was just... You've talked about this. Sometimes you've got to win games twice. And they had to do that. And this is a team that haven't really known how to win for so long. So to see, Luke Davies-Uniacke play that way, to see Harry Sheezel continue to do what he's doing, and Nick Larkey get back to that, I don't care who you're putting on me attitude, and whether I have to compete 1v2 or 3 or at ground level to kick 5. He's just such a great forward 50 target for this club at this particular stage, and he does it with, it's no fuss. He could have left last year and you wouldn't begrudge him. LDU could leave next year and you wouldn't be angry with him. You'd be disappointed he's gone, but you could understand him leaving. But right now they did exactly what they had to do for this footy club. And I think above all else, I was thrilled for Jai Simpkin. Now, he's had a tough stretch as a co-captain of this footy club. And we've all had our negative statements regarding Luke and Jai. And to see them just embrace after the game, and sometimes wins just mean a little bit more, to the full club. People are working very hard down there, Gerard, and for no joy, no reward. Staff, those around the periphery, not just Clarkson and Hood and Jen Watt and those people, but everyone, it's a tough place to be when you're just losing, week on week on week. So I was wrapped for them. It doesn't really change anything. It's front up and go again. But Power's become a serious player. I think that he's, over the last few weeks, he's looked really good. Tristan Sherry, if there's one passage of play for the year that you hope just sets the culture of a football club, him chasing Liam Ryan, who's clearly more agile and clearly a quicker commodity than Tristan, down the wing, just to make it hard for him to kick the ball inside 50, to just touch his back and make it an out of bounds and a neutral ball. If you look at every other Kangaroos player on the field when that happens, they all go up. They all fist pump and say, wow, that is what we have to be. That is why you win games of footy. Because that attitude, it's not a one-game thing. It's not a 5-minute thing. That vision will be shown for weeks, the Kangaroos. So I was wrapped, and I think they're a better team now with Charlie Comben down back, and I think Archer's got a role to play as just a competitive, honest defender. Doesn't have to shoot the lights out, and then you just let the rest do bits and pieces. I just thought it was a pretty good performance.
You can only get that in victory, can't you?
Yeah.
For whatever small gains have been made and highlighted, to really get it to resonate and to get any outside credit, you have to win a game.
You have to win, yeah.
And it also lifts the burden on the second half of the year as the weeks went on, as would they be the team that didn't win a game, and that could have become a crushing prospect to them as well. So that's lifted, and now just wait to see. I mean, they'd love to play the Eagles every week because they're playing thrillers against them. It's the one team they've stacked up well against, and they've beaten them 2 out of the 3, and they've all been thrillers.
Spot on. But they know they've been an ordinary footy club for a few years now. So they understand all this. But you still need to just pat them on the back for a performance like that every now and then. And it doesn't really matter. Like people keep saying to me, but we might lose Zerha, we might lose this. You lose them. It's more about that chase to me than anything else that happened on the weekend for the Kangaroos. So congrats to all. And it does leave the other mob in an interesting position.
Yeah, yep. The regression that's come with losing a couple of players.
Would you think? So I've wrestled with this as well. Like Adam Simpson's done a pretty good job this year, and without Kelly and without Harley Reid, it's exposed what's there really. There's not a lot. There's not really a lot to compete with the Kangaroos. Does he definitely hang on at the end of the season? I think that's in doubt.
There's a lot to play out. That's from Tom Morris, who's reported that he had surgery overnight. He sustained 4 broken ribs, lacerations to the spleen, plus a small puncture in the lung. I didn't reference this at the time, Kingy, when you voiced your concerns about this and suggested you might be on an island, that the overwhelming majority of correspondents were with you, and this was a sample of the messages. So this is well before the news has come through. Absolutely the wrong decision. Ridiculous. Why do we focus on potential head injuries while allowing a potential internal injury go back out to play? Dead right about the outrageous risk taken with Track, Kingy. That's why we don't... the fine talk and sentiment says we don't take the something or another. The Christian Petrarca decision should be a medical decision. If he has broken ribs, the next big contact fractures them even more, then becomes a lung injury. That was from Glenn. I'm with Kingy on this. I was shocked that he came in and didn't go straight to hospital as a precaution. When have you seen Petrarca, let alone other AFL players, in that much distress not go to hospital? If this is acceptable to see how it plays out, the industry has to change, as it's not putting players' welfare first.
Well, I said last night that if that was my son, I'd be disappointed with them putting him back on the field. But all with the caveat that it's not a prelim, it's not a grand final, it's round 13. Welfare first. They keep telling me they put the welfare of the player first, and every time there's a 50-50 call like this, the player ends up back out in the ground. And I don't know whether – this is not necessarily a Christian Petrarca discussion. It's a league-wide discussion. Surely we've got to be a bit better than that. Oh, we'll just put some – it's a common practice. It's probably a cracked rib. We'll put him back out there. I don't know. Don't know, Jared.
Other correspondence we've had so far – Rhonda texts through, as silly as it sounds, could Sydney have the starting midfield in the All-Australian team? Grundy, Warner, Heaney and Goulden on a wing.
That is a great call. I was just having a look at the score involvement. So we talk about damage, players with damage. So right now as we speak, number 1 score involvement player in the competition is Isaac Heaney. Number 2 is Christian Petrarca. He's going to have an absence. Number 3 is Marcus Bontempelli. And then 4 and 5 are Warner and Goulden. So quite conceivably in the next 2 weeks, Heaney, Warner and Goulden could be 1, 2, 3 in the competition for score involvements, for damage. We haven't seen a midfield like this. We haven't.
So I was thinking about this on Sunday night. They were sort of haunting my dreams. It's rare. There are markers in history when you have a midfield collective that on any given day you go, he's the best player in the competition. He's the best player in the competition. They take it in turns. So you think of the storied collections: Cousins, Judd Kerr, Voss, Black, Ackermanis. So this is just, it's the seedlings of that, is these 3 could become an epic trio with Grundy as their ruckman.
And I'll tell you what it does do, Jared. It makes it hard to rest one or two of them in the back half of the year because he'll say, I'm not resting. No way. You rest Warner as well. And Warner says, no way.
Yeah.
Because all these awards are up for
They
grabs.
fuel each other to it. It's amazing. Bombers need to play caddy.
Yeah, I like that. Because I think you've got to find out. Who knows what this guy's got under the bonnet. And I just do think that their tools need a little refresh, a little look. Just have a look at something different. Is it Peter Wright? Is it Harrison Jones? Is it absolutely Stringer at full forward? Or is it Caddy? Do you ask more of Stringer up the ground a bit? I think you need to have a look. Not saying that everything's, throw out the baby just yet, but just have a look at it.
And Stephen, it was like Melbourne throw Nick Martin up forward when in trouble. He's got tricks.
I'd be starting him forward, Jared. Get Redmond back into that back line, start him forward. Maybe put Laverde on the best forward for the opposition and let our man Ridley be the interceptor, and it all comes together pretty quick.
All right, our category. The open question is, how far might Hawthorn go with what's happening at the moment?
Yeah. The one thing I do marvel at the Hawks is their ability to get numbers, to outnumber the opposition wherever the ball is. So it's a great starting point in any game plan, in any methodology you want to come up with. And there's a lot of Collingwood about that. I'm not as bullish as everyone else. And again, Jared, I feel like I'm on an island all day today. But I still think there's the numbers, the data. This is all we stick with is what we know. There's so much scope for improvement for this group and this profile. They're not shooting the lights out with ball movement. They're not stopping the opposition moving the ball really. They win the ball back between the arcs a lot, and I think it's a lot to do with the outnumber. So Sam's got them playing pretty good footy, winning footy, which is terrific. But they know. If you talk with them, if you have a conversation with them, they temper things a fraction. They're not as bullish as the rest. Will Day's made a massive impact coming back into this midfield, and we love how they're building. But they're a long way from where they need to be. Just doing great things, so don't take that the wrong way, Hawks fans. And everyone wants to be outraged. But at the moment, I still think they're going to be about that 8 to 10 win year this year. If you said to me, I think the Suns, whatever number they finish on this year, they'll win 3 more next year. Whatever number Hawthorn finish on this year, they are absolutely going to win 3 more next year. To me, that'd be a question mark. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So if the Suns finish on 10 wins, I'm giving them 13. I'm saying they're 13 next year. 11 to 14. If Hawthorn finish on 10, are they absolutely getting to 13 next year? I'm not convinced.
Do you have... Is Will Day now the guy? So you posed the question in those early weeks when he was absent. Who's the guy that this is all pinned around? Has Day shown that it's him?
Yeah. He's the man. He's the on-baller that they put behind the footy to save the game. He's the one they throw forward to win them the game. So that's your guy. They've stamped him. They've endorsed him, and he's come back in off a long break and hit the ground running. There's not many that do that. Sam Walsh has done it this year. And Will Day's been absolutely terrific. So there's something different about him, no doubt.
I love that Sam chases the win and he'll flip whatever around to make it happen.
Yeah.
So Sicily's down in the goal square. Weddle's the one. I love that.
The Weddle coaching was probably one of the great discussion points for the year, wasn't it?
Yep.
Like what's bravery to say, no, he can do this. Who do we need to do that? Yeah, I know, this guy. And such a pliable player, he can adapt to whatever you need him to be. There's a lot in that. There's a lot in that. And where's he going to finish up? What sort of player is he going to be? Where is he going to play? Sometimes these guys, they never hold a position as such. They just can do multiple things for you. It's going to be a fascination, and let's see how Sam uses him in the next few weeks.
The Giants are on the pressure index, as it turns out. So they've lost 5 out of 7 after that dynamite start. I remember you coming in when they were on that winning streak. You said you'd had a beer with someone who knew footy pretty well, and they'd said to you, just be careful on the Giants. They're not quite as good as they were looking early, and every time they lose a game, it's the only thing I can think of is we were warned about it.
I know. It was an expensive beer, Jerry, because I'd already backed the Giants. Anyway, Can you believe this? Can you believe that? So strike rate, so 60% roughly of scoring comes from turnover, right? Your ability to win the ball back and then go the other way. And if you're poor on the turnover profile, you're not a contender. You're out of the game. You're an also ran. It's just a matter of where you finish. Over the last 7 weeks, or 6 weeks, I should say, their ability to turn an intercept into a score is the worst in the competition. 18th.
Right.
18th. Worse than Richmond, worse than the Eagles, worse than North Melbourne, worse than Melbourne, worse than St Kilda. The 18th in the competition. They go at 44 points per 100. I'm a big believer in strike rate. If you lower your gloves, can I put 5 on your nose? Brisbane and Sydney go close to 90, 100 points per 100 turnovers. They're going at 44. So that's a canyon between them and the best teams. So what's happened? Where's it gone? Well, this is the tsunami. So I think what it does, it sheets home to me that Josh Kelly is their most important midfielder.
Yep.
And that Stephen Coniglio, he's the one that can be a bit of both. He can be an inside bull and he can take the game from inside to out and still have damage. But Josh Kelly, he is their man. All the talk about, I'm starting to think Tom Green's an accumulator. I'm starting to think he's one of those guys that, the gap between him having 20 and 30 doesn't hurt you. Doesn't really get you. That game was ripe for the picking on the weekend for him to separate. And we talked about him on Friday morning with Kane. And in the end, he did separate it because he gave the downfield free kick that went to the Hawks. But it was there. They had a slender lead at halftime and should have been able to go on with it, but they just didn't have it. And I keep saying, when you have to have it, who's it going to be? It wasn't them. So Kelly and Coniglio coming back into that team over the next few weeks will be a godsend for them, but they've got massive, massive ground to make up.
It didn't feel like they played the close finish very smartly.
No.
I have to go back
a bit rattled, didn't they?
Yeah, just a bit. They looked like the lesser experienced of the teams in those scenarios, but they'd played all those close games at the end of last year and sort of feel like that becomes the learned skill. They didn't seem to put... I'd be interested in their own review. We'll never get to see it. But did they do, in the half a dozen things that have to be done right in the last few minutes, did they get a whole sequence of them wrong?
They got their tackling wrong. They just were a fraction overzealous and rattled and panicked. They were operating at a speed that the Hawks weren't.
Yep.
And lost their composure.
Crash has it. They were snatching at it.
Yep.
Rather than just sort of applying their method in the close finish.
So O'Halloran kicks 4. I mean, that's just not the traditional.
A bit rogue, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So they've only kicked. Well, they kicked 12. I mean, we expect them to be bare minimum 12. No, they've got a lot of work to do, and they've got to get rolling. They've really got to get rolling to qualify high enough.
It's the curiosity. It's Neil Bullen on Dacos, Windhager on Miller, Jordan on Tom Stewart, Berry on Bontempelli, and Cotter on Merritt. This is a competition-wide trend.
Well, firstly, I don't want Ross having dinner with taggers. I'd like him to go and have dinner with Blighty and just open the game up a little bit. Play a little bit more expansive footy. If they kick 20, we'll kick 21 type methodology, not taggers. It's great. I think it's great. It's terrific that we got tagging back because we've lost... We lost the clamps on what the star factor players are able to do in the game at the moment. And I was surprised that Geelong didn't go with some sort of tag on Warner, Heaney, and they had blitz halves on Goulden's wing early, but it wasn't really a tag as such. And they were allowed to play their own game, and in the end, that's what they were able to do. Sign up to those high-score involvement games and separate the match. It is good. It is good to see. You can't have, we've discussed this before, you can't have 20 first-round picks in any given team of a weekend. So you've got to use some of your pawns in different ways. We call them role players. If you can take a major piece with a pawn, Windhager beats Miller, huge win. The Neil Bullen one is a fascination. I think Neil Bullen's involved in so much productive offensive play for Melbourne. I'm not sure you can use him as that tagger. Did a great job. Could he do the job? Yes. But there's other things he does for your team that I think are just as important. Could they have used McVie? Could they have used Rivers? Could they have used someone else? A pawn. I don't think Neil Bullen's a pawn. I think he's better than that. So you've got to have that player.
Yep.
Everything has to marry up for you to be able to do it.
Are you corrupting the seatings here? Are you
Yes.
putting, okay, what are you doing?
Well, everyone's going to have Sydney at once. So it's almost like you're a race goer. You love it. This is like favourite out betting. So you can't have the Swans in your seedings.
So they're a given at 1. They're in their own race.
So there's 3 other teams of the 4 that can play in a preliminary final. So it's almost like a small game, an early game of musical chairs. Only 3 chairs, but we're going to have 4 teams.
Oh, right.
Do you like that or not?
Oh, I'm confused by that because I'd promised I was going to put Hawthorn in if they beat the Giants.
Well, you can put. It's more scope to put them in.
Do you think? But
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be there when it matters at the end.
Oh, you found a way to disappoint
I
them.
was just sorting out the
You were just
here
giving
and the
them some
now.
love. Well, go on, do some here and now then. You can have your own rules. You never follow mine anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, I'm doing here and now rather than forecasting for the future. This, of course,
Okay.
won't translate on socials.
All right. Nothing
For-
translates on socials.
Hawthorn. Just how can you deny them
Hawthorn.
at the moment with the form that they're in? They're just so much fun to watch. And I made a pledge with a correspondent last week that if they beat the Giants, they would go into the seeding. So it helps me that these are essentially 2 through 5. But Hawthorn. 4?
Gee, I'm going to throw a cat amongst the pigeons. Brisbane. I think that they can rally, Jared. I don't know if they can. I think they'll be the one that misses out on the chair at the end. But my four position is going to be pretty flexible, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
But they played some pretty good footy the
They
other
did.
night.
They looked really good.
Yep.
I've got Essendon at 3 for the here and the now. I'm not put off by their 2 losses, and they're still playing some good footy.
Yeah, I'm the same with you. I'm on Essendon as well at 3.
2 is Collingwood.
Here.
We like what Collingwood are doing.
we like-
through adversity.
We like watching Collingwood
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
You lower your gloves against. This is the lower your gloves teams for me. You lower your gloves against Collingwood, bang, 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 and then at 1 I've got Carlton as the number 1.
We found a way to have Carlton
Did we?
against the number 1 again. Well done us. We had to play favourite out to do it.
we
But Carlton
favour-
are the 1
reckon we
seed
favour
in the
Carlton?
musical chairs. I think we're along for the ride. Have been for 7 years.
I can't find a way to have 2 teams out of our seedings. How are we going to do that? No. So what do you got? You've got Swans, Gap,
Yep.
Carlton, Collingwood,
Essendon, Hawthorn.
Essendon, Brisbane.
Yep. All right. Favourite out seedings.
They're too similar in the end.
Yeah, we sort of got there in the end. Won't translate, but that's okay.